Hello, hello.
Hello, Ben.
Yeah, Andres said he's not going to be joining today. We were planning on doing the zero point 0.5 uh planning meeting today, but with him out, depending on how many people join, we may or may not do that. I'm just warning you, it might be a short meeting or it might be a longer one depending on the number of people.
Yes. Also on my side, I continue to investigate a bit about alternative JSON schema, etc., and
Oh, perfect.
generic
Okay, well,
s-
I add that then.
stuff.
Cool. And then do you attend the implementation SIG?
Yes, but when I have no conflict with with other
Uh,
meeting.
Oh, gotcha, gotcha. Does that time slot usually have conflicts? Because if not, we probably want to move it if that is the case.
Previously, I had a conflict for this meeting and the other one, but since I left my company this month. I will no longer have conflict, I guess.
Oh, gotcha, gotcha. Yeah, makes sense, makes sense. Okay, let me share my screen real quick, and then we'll go to this. All right. Uh, implementation SIG, implementation SIG. Next topic tomorrow. Okay, cool. And Brett, I was just letting David know as well. So Andrea is going to be out. He has a conflict today. So we were originally going to do the zero point 0.5 planning meeting, but it was contingent on the number of people. And if it's just going to be us three, that I'd rather wait just for Andrea, just so we have like everyone, like as many people as here as possible. Especially with Andrea being kind of like the maintain the main one of the main maintainers. So definitely be good to get his input. With that said, this meeting will probably be pretty short unless we have topics that we want to discuss. Um, and so just wanted to let you know because it can kind of it might be a lot shorter than what we're used to.
Yeah, no problem. I mean,
Okay.
I don't want to be involved. I don't know enough about point five roadmap to even contribute. So
Well, yeah. Well, I mean that doesn't hurt, right? Actually, that might be even better because, like, we need a fresh set of eyes, kind of help us prioritize like what is important, right? So I think your opinion is still going to be very valuable either way.
thank
Cool.
you.
Well, yeah. So with that said, I think zero point 0.5 planning will hold off for the next SIG, scheduled for next SIG, and the one slot that came up which was David. He's continuing the investigation with code generation, which you don't know how much I appreciate that, David, because like I'm planning on writing this proposal. So if you're able to like find any sort of good tooling that might fit for our SDKs, and that would be really, really good. Um and I thought about it a little bit more, Brett, with your concern of like doing validation. And I think what we can do, like with the proposal, here's what I'm kind of thinking. So let me know if this lines up correctly. So there's really two problems here that JSON schema tries to solve with our SDKs. One is code generation, and then the other is validation, right? So there's these two problems. The problem that we're trying to fix is the code generation, right? So I think the validation portion can still be in the SDKs. It would just be a validation layer in the SDKs, and that could be switched out with other validation if people choose. That's the whole goal is to make the SDKs as flexible as possible with validation, etc. So that validation will still be there. The only part that's going to change is the code generation. Does that make is that a better? I think that's a better outline of our goals. Will that work better for you, Brett? Because I know you had a little bit of concerns there.
Like I said, I'm not worried about I understand the code generation piece. And having used JSON schema to generate code, I know that it's not very good. Um, but I just wanted the validation piece to be
Maintain
pluggable.
basically. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
maintain and pluggable. Yeah. Okay, makes
Yeah.
perfect
So
sense.
I mean, if we move and that was my point last week is that if we move away from JSON schema, right?
Mhm.
But the SDKs have a way to validate, uh, it's fine, right? The only
Okay,
rule I
perfect.
have is if you're slinging JSON, you better validate it. That's
Yeah,
the only rule
exactly.
I'm trying to solve, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
as long as it's easy, right? I don't want some weird bespoke way to validate it. I want it to be normal because I deal with
yes, yes.
bespoke all day at work, and I don't want to deal with it in my open source projects.
Yeah, yeah.
So
No, I completely agree. And like I said, I have a lot of experience with SDKs. I definitely can design a pattern where it'll work for almost all SDKs, if not all, unless there's like some weird some weird idiosyncrasy with the language. But so I think we can make that work. We can definitely make the validations pluggable where you can make it more strict or less strict, just whatever you want to choose, so I think that's the goal, kind of like a second goal to this, not really this proposal, but like a follow-up proposal is like figuring out how we can, make the SDKs a little bit more user-friendly in terms of validation, in terms of like hooks, etc. Like what I call them handlers. So I call it AKA handlers. So it's called the handler pattern, which makes that's how you make SDKs as flexible to the end users that suit any sort of their use cases. So that's something that we need to visit this pattern and implement them in the SDKs, because that will address I would say probably like 95 of the issues regarding like validation, regarding like sending, changing prototypes, changing HTTP clients. This handler pattern, if we follow it, will make it very, very easy to do that. So yeah, so that's going to be kind of the major thought process here is first fixing the code generation, and then thinking about how do we make the SDKs, one, consistent, and then two, kind of more architected in a way that is more of a SDK pattern, like where a lot of SDKs use this handler pattern. So I think this is something we can move forward with. So yeah, I'll have more on that with this proposal. Like I said, it's probably going to be a little bit, but I'm really excited to see David's notes, and then I'm gonna probably ping you directly, Brett, when the proposal's out, just to make sure that it doesn't have any concerns that you might see. Because like I said,
yep.
I know you had some, with the validation, but you cleared it up. You just want it to be pluggable, which I completely understand. So yeah, cool. That sounds good then. And then David, can you give us a little bit of an update? You said you looked into some of the code generation tooling. Was there anything else that looked interesting?
Yes. Yes and no. If you, I'm not a fan of I'm not a fan of having a split between the generated code and the validation. I'm a big fan of types that enforce validation instead of having post-validation, etc. But if we are in the orientation of having as simple structure as possible, there is a competitor, I could say, to JSON schema that is named JSON data type. And the purpose of JSON data types is to generate code, the data structure. So they try to have a specification that is, I could say, the bar minimum in common between several programming language. They by default provide a way to generate code for Java, Go, Rust, and two other, I don't remember which, Python,
Okay.
I guess.
And then
So
real quick though, David, I want to be clear here, like this validation pluggable system, this wouldn't mean that we couldn't rely on the code generation to do the validation. All this means is if a user wants to add their own, like remove our validation, add it, it'd be it'd be easy for them to do that. Like they could be like, oh, I want to use JSON schema. So what we're saying, I guess what I'm trying to say is that we're not removing that validation from the code generation. It's still going to go there, but we just need this layer here that if people want to use something else, they can, if that makes sense.
Yes, but for me, it's when we create events, we should avoid to create invalid events.
Oh yeah, yeah,
with,
absolutely.
with programming language. Without say, hey, after creation, I have to call some kind of, can you validate my current that my current structure is okay or not? Is it a valid package URL? Is it a valid ID? Is it valid?
Yes.
And this is so it's where there is, and the distinction between JSON schema and JSON data types is very interesting on this point. I mean, in JSON schema, by example, you can define some rules like pattern matchings, min length, max length, etc. But it's something that doesn't exist in a lot of programming language by default. And so in JSON data types, you don't have this kind of constraint.
Okay.
It's a string, it's an int, and that's nearly all. So if it's a string, you have to do the content validation, the semantic in another phase. But by default, they will create all the stuff. And also, I noticed also previously I forgot some other stuff that prevent us just to use code generation, and mainly those constraints, min ints, min lengths, using some special pattern like package URL, etc., etc. So what I can do maybe this week, it's, if you're okay, it's to start an issue or a discussion when I list all this stuff on.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. Like I'd really appreciate that. And then another thing that you might want to investigate is something called Smithy. This is owned and created by AWS. It's also really powerful. It has really good validation. Like, so you can do code generation from it, but you can be like, this is a required field. This is a string that needs to follow this regex. This is a integer with this limit, with a minimum and a maximum. So this Smithy has a lot of good validation for code generation that allows it to be it will code generate the validation into the SDKs as well.
Okay, so yes, and there is what would be awesome, I could say, if from this specification we're able to generate the documentation and have them in sync. It will be
a good want, and I would say need is a way to generate documentation for the SDKs. Yeah, I completely agree. We need to do a better job for documentation. So yeah, 100% for that. And we can also look at like what tooling, maybe, we could rely on code generators to do documentation. I know Java is big in that wheelhouse, and so is Go. I'm not too familiar with Rust, but basically the code generation is also, and the compiler is also what generates the documentation. But I know for other languages, that's a separate thing. Like, yeah, they have code generation and then documentation generators. So I don't know what flavor we want to go with, but that's something else we could really explore as well.
yes, I'm thinking more about replacing the manual specification in Markdown that we have today. But yes.
Okay. Cool. All right. Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for that link, by the way.
I encourage, the name is JSON type def, in fact, not data type.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I want to keep this pretty small because, like I said, I want to make this the main discussion topic for tomorrow. I think tomorrow is the SIG. Let me see.
Yes, but anyway, one of the purpose of the 0.5 is to include some breaking change, I guess, in it. But if we switch to another language, like this one, it will be a major breaking change. So I don't know if we should do the switch into 0.5 to do another big breaking change in 0.6, etc. So
Yeah, we
Today,
can.
it could be a lot of work for maintainer of third-party stuff
Yeah,
if we
yeah.
do too frequent breaking change.
Yeah, the whole goal was to make 0.5 the breaking change version. So yeah, we'll definitely call that out and figure out like where this best fits. But but yeah, I think like I said, we can discuss that more tomorrow, make that the main
Mm.
topic, and kind of get into like what we need to do with the SDKs, et cetera, et cetera.
And also, I want to say I said something wrong in the past where I
Okay.
say OpenAPI was not used to define a JSON schema because to define a data type, but maybe API. In reality, OpenAPI use some kind of extended or fork of JSON schema. So
Oh, okay.
so they have some feature. It's how I discover JSON type def because I'm looking for a discriminator, something I
Mm-hmm.
use in OpenAPI, but discriminator are not part of JSON schema, but are part of OpenAPI and typedef. And discriminator are used to create polymorphism or how's the name it? Tag union. And
Oh
it could
yeah.
match
I'm very
exactly
familiar.
our needs. It could be a subject of this, it could be this kind of subject or this other kind, or etc. Instead of having the all those schemas that we have today. That is also one of the reasons why we have to create custom generator today.
Yeah, we
Because
should
we don't
really.
have one schema, but
Yes.
we have a lot of small schema.
Yeah, Open API, like I said, like I know there was a little bit of reservations, but I have used it in the past, and I'm pretty sure we could make it generate the SDKs. But like not to say that that's the right tool because it feels like it's like a sledgehammer, trying to like trying to like you screw in a screwdriver base or a screw, right? Like it's I feel like it's a little bit overkill. But if that turns out to be the only tool that makes sense, we might have to go with that because Open API does allow for like documentation generation, has also a really
Yes.
good validation layer. So like it is a possibility and we should definitely look into it.
Yes, and in my company, not previous because I'm still here, the QA team use the OpenAPI just to generate the data model, not the
Yeah.
API itself, but just the data model.
Yeah. I'm very familiar with that pattern as well. Yeah, it's very customizable, but like I said, it might be a little bit too powerful it's more powerful than what we need. We can probably get away with something simpler, but if that simpler thing exists, that's more of the question. So I think this is like
Yes.
the investigation phase that we need to do. But yeah, really appreciate the deep dive into this, David, and I look forward to like the discussion tomorrow. So yeah, was there anything else that we wanted to cover today? Because these are really the only two topics. Well, like I said, we'll schedule 0.5 for next week for the planet, and kind of get this ball rolling. And then once we figure out what tools, I'm gonna rely on you, David, to kind of like highlight all this. I'm gonna start the proposal and kind of like iron out all the details after researching all the tools that you find. I have a few tools that, like I said, I'm pretty familiar with Smithy, so I can probably write that section. But I definitely want to cover like multiple tools that we investigated to show that we did like the breadth of research. So yeah. So was there anything else that anyone had?
No, yes. Lot of stuff that we have in 0.5 was some of the stuff. It's changed in the type, ID, etc. But maybe if we switch to another approach, we will have to review everything and those changes will be
Yes.
useless.
Yeah, completely. I completely get what you're saying. Okay. So there's a lot to think about. So it's kind of like up in the air right now. But yeah, like I said, let's circle back next week. I mean, tomorrow we'll kind of lay out some more information, and then we can circle back next week, kind of figure out the best path forward, what that's going to look like as well. And then I guess with that said, since we don't have any more action items, I think we're pretty good to kind of like I said, this is going to be a pretty short meeting. We can go ahead and close out. Did you have anything, Brett, or were you satisfied with the stuff that we went over?
Nope, I don't have anything. We're good.
Okay, cool. All right, well then, thanks everyone. I'll look forward to
Thanks.
tomorrow and then talking to you guys next week. You guys have a good one, right?
Later.
All right,
Yes.
Thank you.
bye.
I'm not sure for tomorrow for my presence, but yes.
Okay, all right. Well, if you're
See you.
there, that'll be great. But if not, I'll just look out for that GitHub issue then.
Yes. Okay.
All right, sounds
Bye.
good. All right, see you later. Bye.